Welcome back to a quick chat in the Cadillac. My name is SG. I like to explore the simplicity of complexity. So if you don't know, this is my show where I break it down for you both real and quick. Today we're going to talk about a hot button issue. Okay, I'm sure you're all familiar with the word and the way that it's used nowadays. See, we're not talking about hazardous waste when I say toxic and toxicity. Okay, we're not talking about chemicals and chemistry and all that shit. Well, maybe chemistry. We're talking about toxicity and navigating your way through a world full of toxic people. Now, I'm going to try and lay this out as simply as I can because by no means am I the expert or originator of this idea. But what I am is very good at communicating very frequently. Basically, I run my mouth. So we're going to talk about toxicity today. People who are toxic exist all around you for the most part until you're able to find your way into an environment where that level of toxicity for the most part is discouraged. And though it will still pop its ugly head in your rearview mirror every now and then, it's okay for you to not look back. Now, I'm a firm believer that nobody in this world is perfect, and that if there was ever a perfect person, she's done already passed away, and now we all just got the task of working towards that, right? But people is going to be toxic in one way or another. You can't run around expecting people to not be toxic. It's just unrealistic. What you can do is figure out how to handle toxic people. And they're going to be in every aspect of your life at some point in time. They'll show up in your family. They'll show up in your friend groups. They'll show up in your relationships. They'll show up in your workplace. They'll even show up in your recreational activities and hobbies. And you have to navigate it as best you can. And sometimes it's not toxic people. It's just toxic moments. But either way, it's going to be there. And the best thing to do is know how to handle it. I can't tell you exactly where every form of toxicity comes from. Sometimes it's people who just been through toxic shit and didn't know nothing else to do but copy it. Sometimes it's people who've been through toxic shit and purposefully said, you know what, I'm going to out-toxic the toxic shit as payback for the toxic shit that does happen to me. And then it's people who just grew up and didn't know no better and ain't ever been checked or learned anything different. So they continue down their toxic path, not knowing that their ways is fucked up. But your job ain't even to figure that out. See, when you're going through your day-to-day life, you have to develop what we would call a thick skin. Now, I just finished a video talking about how you can't be cold and black-hearted and detached without losing yourself and losing your humanity. But we also talked about how important it is to have a balance. And your balance is going to help you guide yourself through these toxic moments, through these toxic instances that you encounter. And whether it happens regularly or every once in a while, you got to be ready and stay ready. A lot of times, toxicity even comes from a place of emotion that is unprocessed or improperly processed. Emotion that isn't being handled properly, or, people who aren't equipped to handle that depth of emotion. So, people who get extremely jealous, for example, people who get extremely jealous, whether it's over another's possessions or their own possessions and connections and things like that. Their toxicity comes from an insecurity, but they don't know how to handle the insecurity. And they don't know how to confront it. They don't know how to say, self, I lack confidence. Or even go to the situation or scenario and say, you know what? I lack confidence. That's why I was being jealous. That's why the envy was there. And I acted out of the envy. I acted upon the envy in a toxic way because I thought I couldn't handle it any other way to satisfy myself. So if you're in a situation where someone is jealous of you, let it rock. At the end of the day, they're gonna say and do what they're gonna say. But that doesn't have to be the reason that you change your behavior. That doesn't have to be the reason that you say, you know what? Just because they doing this shit, I'm gonna step down a level and I'm gonna do this shit right back. In fact, that'll set you equivalent to them. And now all that jealousy that they had over you turns into triumph in taking what they thought that you had in the first place. But you don't always want what somebody else has. Sometimes people be out here putting on a show. Okay, and it's a difference between being an entertainer and being a faker. Sometimes the lines get a little blurry, but at the end of the day, there is a difference. Toxicity is going to confront you, especially at points in your life where you are making a change, where you're about to take the next step or go to the next level. And even though it seems like the worst timing, it's actually the best timing. That's like the final exam. That's the way that you know deep down in your soul that you're ready for this next level or this next opportunity, because you surpassed the toxicity with fluency, with ease. You made it so it wouldn't be a problem no more, because at the end of the day, if it was still a problem, clearly you weren't ready for the next level. And I know it's tough. Sometimes it takes people years to overcome these things, and decades and lifetimes to overcome these things. Sometimes it could be overcame in the matter of one simple decision. There's no telling, but the best way for you to handle it, the best way for you to mitigate it, don't let people's toxic energy influence what you're truly meant to do. Whether it's in a small scale, like what you're truly meant to do in that moment, or in a large scale, like over a period of time. If someone's coming at you from the energy of wrath, take a moment and reflect. If you're the person who's coming at someone else from an energy of wrath, take a moment and reflect before either one of y'all do some shit that's going to fuck up whatever you got going right now, especially if you're on a path, if you're on a journey to do something amazing. And if you ask me, as long as you're aligned with whatever it is you're actually supposed to be doing, not what the world or people who are trying to derail you are telling you that you're supposed to be doing. If you're actually aligned with that, whatever you're supposed to do is very important. It will be beautiful and wonderful for you to actually go out and do it. We are not immune to toxicity. Even the most positive people, even the most the most benevolent people and the most light-filled people have a little bit of toxicity from time to time. It's nothing wrong with that. But you have to be able to check it. You have to be able to check it in yourself so you can see it in others and it won't affect you as much. If you could say to yourself, shit, I was just being jealous. Shit, I was just being angry. Shit, I was just being overly attached. Shit, I was being overly detached. Then you can see it in other people and say, okay, I'm not even going to take none of that shit personal. Matter of fact, it's not going to change nothing in my world because I already know where that comes from. I could understand why that person feels that way. And though they may be acting in a manner that's destructive to them, whether momentarily or consistently, it's not my fault that they're doing so. It has everything to do with them and not so much to do with me. And we could get into the nuance, or we could get into how tricky it is to, when it comes down to people that you love, people that you care for deeply on an emotional level in any aspect of your life. It's not necessarily your responsibility to teach them and to shift them to move out of their toxicity. You can, but there's an art form to doing that successfully without losing too much yourself. And I'm not going to pretend to tell you how to do that because I'll be just quite honest. I ain't really figured it all the way out yet. But even if you are able to guide them, sometimes it's only temporary because ultimately people are going to change if they want to change. You got to let people change. Don't get me wrong. It would be toxic of you to see someone at a point in time where they're toxic and then see them later on after they had supposedly grown and developed and point back at the toxicity and say, no, this is who you truly are. That's some toxic shit to do because that's the energy of envy. But what I really want you to understand is it's not your responsibility to make sure that happens. When it does happen, I would say it would probably be your responsibility to congratulate that person and move on. You don't have to involve them in your life. You don't have to cut them out of your life. That's your decision to make. But in my opinion, it's irrelevant to the idea that you can congratulate someone for their progress. And if you don't, it's a little bit toxic. So today, take a moment, relax, let the toxic shit go. And I mean, you're going to have moments, relapses, especially if you grew up or if you were catering to or used to an environment that was especially toxic. You'll have moments where you relapse a little bit, but it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Okay, sometimes you could change your whole life in a day, but that's very rare. A lot of times you change your life in a day after a day after a day after a day after a day, and then a setback, and then a day and a day and a day, and then a week straight, and then another month straight, and then another setback. It compounds over time. It's about consistency, not perfection. So work on your toxicity and don't let others' toxicity affect you because it ain't personal. Peace.